What a great day we're having right here, May 1, at the Student Voices Summit on Civic Education. You know, our nation faces enormous challenges here, domestically and overseas. We are a nation, though, that is deeply divided. I commend two books to you if you want to know more about how we got in this position of a nation deeply divided. The first is by the great Harvard professor Robert Putnam, Bob Putnam. His book, Bowling Alone, traces how we used to be a nation of joiners who would do things for our neighbors and join together with our neighbors to bring about positive change. Not so much anymore. Follow-up book to that talks about how we have segregated ourselves into like-minded communities. A wonderful book by the sociologist Bill Bishop called The Big Sort. I commend those books to you if you'd like to know more about how we gotten to be such a divided nation. And unfortunately, far too many adults don't possess the very basic civic information that so many of you students have managed to acquire. You know, recently the Annenberg Public Policy Center did a survey of adults, and you're not going to believe this. For example, more than a quarter of those adult Americans did not know who America fought in the Revolutionary War. Can you imagine? Didn't know who we fought in the Revolutionary War. You folks learned that by the time you were in first grade, I'm sure. And unfortunately, 4 in 10 of those adults surveyed incorrectly stated that the Constitution gives the president the power to declare war on his own right. That's dangerous, that people have that attitude. And unfortunately, in far too many places across the country, obviously not here in Laco or in Orange County, our youngest citizens are particularly underprepared for citizenship. All too often, they lack the basic knowledge about our system of government, and students show a poor command of history. Less than a quarter of 8th graders nationally, again, I'm not talking about here in Laco or Orange County, but less than a quarter of 8th graders nationally were able to display a frankly not very difficult proficient status in civic learning on the last national assessment test in this subject. Nearly a quarter, this is disturbing, this is from some new research that has just come out. And think about this for just a second. Nearly a quarter of young Americans think that a democratic form of government is bad or very bad. The choices they were given: a democracy, a monarchy, a totalitarianism state, communism, and yet nearly a quarter of these young Americans felt that a democratic form of government was bad or very bad. Clearly, we've got some work to do. A few other stats. Only about 29% of our eligible American voters participated in the 2016 primary elections, which determined the major party nominees, Secretary Clinton and Mr. Trump. These primary voters were highly unrepresentative of the rest of the population. It's because people didn't take the advice of that wonderful group that was up here before, I think you all, and they didn't get out and vote. As I mentioned, nearly a quarter of young Americans have lost faith in a democratic form of government. Intentionally fabricated news stories. We were just talking in the last segment about fake news. Intentionally fabricated news stories involving the 2016 presidential candidates were shared at least 38 million times on social media. And Stanford researchers found that young people's ability to reason about the information on the internet can basically be summed up as poor and needs help. Americans distrust the government at record levels in our history, and they also distrust their fellow citizens to participate in government. According to the Pew Research Center, just 34% say they have very great or good deal of trust and confidence in the political wisdom of the American people. Fully 63% have not very much confidence or no confidence at all in the choices their fellow citizens would make. In a representative democracy, that isn't good, folks. This is why we have to do better in civic learning across the country. Each of you students who have made presentations, and I know others of you will be making presentations later, show the art of the possible. That when given an opportunity, you can not only master the civic knowledge part, you can develop robust civic skills that even bring your parents out to be civically engaged. I want to challenge you with something else, charge you, frankly, with something else. And that is to constantly keep on your friends, your peers, the folks you go to school with, your friends in the neighborhood, that no matter how bad things sound on the news, they've got to remain involved. They've got to take the time to inform themselves and to become civically engaged. That's the way we keep Dr. Franklin's charge to keep this republic. And you know, what you're doing here today is just as important as work you would do at a science fair, perhaps one of the Westinghouse science fairs or one of the national ones. It's just as important as anything you could do in an English class, anything that you would do in a math class, just as important as solving some big complicated equation. Because as Naheem just reminded us a few minutes ago, you know, we're going to be using different skills in our careers, whether we're educators, engineers, whatever. We're going to be using different skill sets that we first perfected in our K-12 school years and then hopefully on into higher education. But we're all going to be citizens of this country. And we've got to develop the civic skills to help, again, as Dr. Franklin said, keep the republic. And you so brilliantly show how it can be done. Through your participation in the programs represented by the supplemental programmers in the back of the room, you're so blessed here in Southern California. Some of the very best nationally known programs are based right here in Los Angeles, starting with the Constitutional Rights Foundation led by Dr. Marshall Crotty. The Center for Civic Education out of Calabasas offers wonderful programming, K-12, that can be employed in schools. Here I'm speaking to some of the teachers who might not be aware of some of these programs. The Annenberg Center at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library has fantastic programs that make the subject come alive. Want to talk about controversial issues in the classroom? I don't think you can unless you first consult ProCon, that helps you provide students with the information they need to help discuss controversial issues in the classroom. You have a wealth, the League of Women Voters, Facing History, Facing Ourselves, talk about wonderful program that will help you talk about controversial issues in the classroom. So if you're a teacher who's here at this event and you're just getting started as being a civics teacher, you're not sure where to go get the resources you need to do the job you want to do, it's right there in the back of the room. And again, for you young people, you are the future. My generation is leaving you a huge stack of problems that you're going to have to deal with. And you can't deal with them unless, what is Lin-Manuel Miranda, how did he put it in Hamilton? Unless you're where? In the room. In the room. You got to show up, you got to be in the room, you got to participate. And take this time, as so many of you have done, to develop your civic muscles, to develop your civic skills. It will serve you throughout your life as you develop critical thinking skills and other transferable skills. And, as I said earlier, it will help you keep Dr. Franklin's charge to keep and pass along again this republic. Congratulations to each and every one of you. It's such a joy to be here today. And keep up the great work, my friends. Thank you.